We're making progress. All right, screen share. Let's see. Oh, wait a minute. All right. Intentions. So we generally start every Welead with these intentions, just so that everyone's on the same page. So are there one, two, three, wait. Are there people who would like to volunteer? Four people who'd like to volunteer to read each segment?
I'll start.
Pardon me?
I can start, Karen. It's
All right.
Katie.
Okay, great. Go for it.
I'll do the second part.
Okay. I am part of one team, one dream, assume best intentions, but assess impact. Keep our main mission in mind.
I am an active, non-passive listener, listening more than I speak, listen with empathy, passion, and understanding.
There you go. I am respectful. Words and actions matter. One voice at a time. Value yours and others' time.
I have a growth mindset. Questions, comments, and constructive criticism welcome.
Perfect. All right, I have my video turned off. Clearly, I am still here, but it's because everybody sounds like they're underwater. Because that I was not able to fix overnight. All righty. So we're going to start with a presentation on your campaign. Now, I know that people here, like Michelle, you're probably very advanced on this, and Jessica, you are way advanced on this. So if we could just ask for your patience for maybe 7 or 8 minutes through this presentation, because there's others that are learning about it for the first time. So my apologies if we are being redundant here.
No apologies necessary. Always here to learn.
So, and if you have questions, just put your hand up and in the emojis, and then I will get to you. So this is about your campaign throughout. And like I said, all of these things are suggestions. They're organizing tools on here that will help you in putting this all together so you don't feel overwhelmed. So the first thing is, for those that are still sitting there, this will help you down the road too, in terms of putting your message together and telling your story, is asking yourself, why are you running? Why should people vote for you? And this will be provided to you in the Welead OC campaign, candidate campaign resources folder. But basically, this is a worksheet that you can go through to ask yourself questions about this whole idea of wanting to run. I mean, it's, questions about why you want to, are you motivated by a particular issue? It's important that you get sign off from your family and your friends, because your life is going to be impacted tremendously while you're running, especially after August. Your time will not be your own. So anyway, this is an exercise that will be available to you on our campaign website. I mean, in Google Docs, and I will share that folder with you. All right, back to the. Now, you need a checklist so that you can keep everything straight. Also, we have, after you, in that same folder this is really a campaign strategy, campaign plan. And it kind of goes through chronologically suggestions of what to do when. So before you start, now these on this spreadsheet, they're linked to different documents, different websites to help you navigate. And this goes through, why isn't this moving? Hold on. It just takes you through and you can check it off as you go through the process. It keeps you online. It keeps you focused and it just gives you a blueprint of where to go next. So you have to get a treasurer. If you spend money on nothing else, you need a treasurer, not your wife, not your husband, not your best friend, not a family member, someone who knows what the campaign finance laws are. Now, Brenda Short in Minnesota, and that's the only person. And even Egypt, if we can convince you to run for something. So every state has their own campaign finance laws. And every city has their, I mean, I don't know what it's like in Michigan. I don't know what it's like in Minnesota. I will find out. But in Orange County, not only does the state have campaign finance laws, but individual cities have their own finance requirements and finance laws. So you've got to have a treasurer who knows all of that and knows how to navigate it. For instance, if you're a candidate who's running in the city of Orange, in Orange County, you cannot accept campaign contributions from other candidates, nor can your campaign contribute to other candidates. That's not the case in other cities. So you need somebody who knows what they're doing. For California, there is one document, or campaign handbook, and it's put out by the Federal Fair Practices Political Committee. We have a link to that. You need to set up a bank account. If you get a treasurer can help you set up your bank account, get your campaign committee going, and all of that sort of minutia so that you don't have to do it. You should. Then there's the candidate handbook from the FPPC. In Orange County, candidates need to register with the city clerk, or the city clerk's office. If you're a county candidate, you go through the registrar of voters. So anyway, let's get on. So before you do anything, you need to know what your district is all about. And you can find that information on census.gov. Type in your county, you can type in your state, then you type in your county, you can type in your city. And there it'll give you the demographics. It gives you the history. You need to figure out the history of your state or your district. The census will give you demographic information, will give you the major industries that are in your district. It'll have a breakout of race and ethnicity. It gives you economic statistics, like what the average income is, what the greatest income is, how many single households there are, single family households, what the age breakdown is. I mean, it just gives you an idea of what it's all about. You can find out the electoral information. You need to figure out. I'm gonna mute. Okay. And the voter registration breakout, how many registered voters are there in your district, and what the political party breakdown is. And then you need to know who the key office holders are in your district. If you're running against someone, Or even if, so say you want to run for city council. And city council in Orange County is a 4-year seat. So you go to the registrar of voters, look up, so this is District 3 in Costa Mesa, and see how many candidates ran and what their vote totals were, how many people voted. As you can see, not a ton in this district. And then what percentage that person won by. So this also helps you when you're going through this data to see just how many people voted. In this case, it's going to be in 2018. And how many candidates were in that race. And this gives you an idea of what it is you're up against and where you have room to grow. You also need to get a map of your district. Now, in Orange County, you can get it through the Registrar of Voters. And I'm sure that you can do the same in Minnesota, in Minneapolis, and in Flint. Figure out how you do that, though. This is a sample of what the handbook, candidate handbook, looks like from the FPPC. All of these links are on a spreadsheet that I showed you earlier, and there on that spreadsheet, you can just click on the link. Then setting up your campaign, these are campaign positions that most local candidates have. This does not mean you have to pay for these positions. You can have volunteers that can fill these positions, but you need to have somebody heading up these particular positions. Now, there are people who get campaign consultants, and they're expensive. They can be anywhere from $500 to $1,000 a month. So before you do anything else, you have to make sure that you have enough money raised that is going to pay for that consultant between now and November. But then there are other people who just, okay, so there is, you have to have a treasurer no matter what. And then there's the campaign manager, fundraiser. Well, you can read. So this is what a treasurer, again, all of this is on, it will be in folders, will be documents that are shared with you. So if you don't get it all in at this point, you will. You'll have access to it. Campaign manager is important for you as the candidate because they're going to be in charge of the day-to-day action, activities on your campaign that allows you to do other things. So the campaign manager has to be somebody that you have the utmost trust and respect for, but also somebody that you will listen to, even if they have bad news, and that you're not afraid to fire. I know that sounds horrible, but that's the kind of dynamic that you're working with. But it has to be someone who's highly organized, and they're going to be in charge of your budget. They're in charge of everything. So then there's the finance director and fundraiser. So you as a candidate, you're kind of going to be it, because you're going to be starting out calling, and Karina Pantone will get into this tomorrow, but you're going to be starting out as the person who is doing the fundraising, because you're the strongest person there is to be doing the fundraising, because it's you, the candidate. But at some point, even if you don't have somebody formally who's actually making phone calls for you, you need to have somebody who is going to sit with you that can organize the phone calls you're going to be making, help you organize your lists, help you just organize how you're going to be doing the fundraising. You need somebody who's going to be putting your field plan together, and Victor will go over that with you tomorrow. So at Welead, we spend a ton of time on the field program. Why? Because if you are not knocking on doors, if you are not reaching out to voters, you're not going to win. And Welead has the data and the statistics of our own alum who like some got started late in 2018. They got started in August. But for instance, Oscar Rodriguez ran for Huntington Beach City Council. There were 18 candidates in that race, 18. And he had probably the lowest name ID. And yet, even though he got started in August, he had knocked on 13,000 or 14,000 doors and got 13,000 votes and came in 5th for 3 seats. So that's amazing. And then there are other candidates whose door knocking and voter contact is a direct result of the number of votes that they got and won. And then the communications and social media. You're going to hear that from Mindy Sarin tomorrow, so she can tell you more about what that's all about, and then you can get a good idea of how you're going to organize that with your campaign. Developing a campaign budget. If you do not know how much money you need to spend on your campaign, you're never going to know how much money you need to raise. So we have, we have the sample budget template also will be shared with you in Google Docs. So for instance, you are going to have one-time fixed administrative costs. And then you fill that in on whatever date you spent that money. Treasury setup fees, logo designs, whatever. You put in here what is going to be the first time and one-time expenditure under administrative. Then there are fixed expenditures. That will be the money you spend on a treasurer. If you've got a graphic design platform like Canva, your website, your email platform, if you're hiring any kind of staff, you need to get a mailbox or a post office box outside of so in other words, you need a box, a mailing address apart from your treasurer's mailing address. There are going to be expenses for your digital campaign, which Mindy will go over tomorrow. Voter outreach. This is going to be and should be where all of your money, the bulk of your money is spent. And that is your field and voter outreach. So you're going to be spending money on voter data. You're going to be spending money on a phone bank and a text bank. You're going to be spending money on door hangers and walk pieces. So just keep that in mind. Like 75 to 80% of your money should be spent right here. And then, of course, the ever popular campaign merch, t-shirts, sweatshirts, bags. You need remit envelopes. So anyway, if you download this, it's set up so that the totals will come out at the end here, and the totals come out down here. Ta-da. So you can insert rows and insert expenditures that you're anticipating. So you put this together so that you know, or you have a pretty good idea how much money you need to raise. That doesn't mean you're going to raise it. So you want to have sort of like an eye towards three different types of budgets. One is the the aspirational, like you'd like to be able to do all of this and then some. And then you get that total. Say that total is 60,000. But then like midway through your campaign, you see you only raised 20,000. So oops, you need to go through and figure out, all right, what can you get rid of on this list? And then try to think of what, I mean, you need a realistic budget. And then here's a sample fundraising budget, which I will show you again after on Sunday before we end. And because I don't want to confuse you before you speak to, before Katrina gives her presentation on fundraising. But this is a pretty comprehensive, you're going from the budget, you're looking to see how much you need to raise, and then you can go through this and fill out from one quarter to the next what you need to raise, like what your goal is. Say you need to raise $60,000 between now and November. So how can you split that between these 3 quarters? Really, you want to split it between 2 quarters because you'd like to have as much money raised as possible by September 30th. Because we vote by mail in California. So the ballots, vote by mail ballots are dropped 1 month before the election, and people turn those things in early. So really, you're going to be spending the bulk of your money up to the first week, second week of October. But you need to have money left over just in case. Again, we'll go through that after Karina gives her speech on Sunday. So Saturday, does anybody have any questions, comments?
I do.
Go for it.
Okay. I have a lot of comments, and I'm gonna say I'm gonna apologize up front because I thought there were state laws that you have to raise a certain money per guidelines, like per city council, so that law doesn't matter in California. Is that
So
what's the
what
difference?
is the law? No. So
Okay.
in California, there are, well, I'm going to talk about Orange County because even in California, while there might be state laws that regulate campaign finance,
Mhm.
cities and the county have their own laws. So
Okay.
for instance, in one city in Orange County, Irvine, the maximum amount of money you can raise from an individual or a political action committee is $490. It might be up higher
Okay.
now. In Anaheim, I think it's 2,000. Is that correct, Jessica?
I think it's different for school board. I think mine is 4,000.
4,000.
But that sounds right for the city council race. I
Yeah,
think
the
it's
city
less.
council is 2,000.
Mhm.
So see, even in Anaheim, the school board has a different limit than the city council. That is not the same in Huntington Beach. In Huntington Beach, I think that the limit is 1,000. So how is it in Minneapolis?
Well, we have a list, for city council, I think we can only raise 5,000. That's, and that's for city council, but mayor is bigger. I know that. And any donations above that amount is taxable. So it's like, so that, well, I have a handbook because I ran for office, but that's why I was questioning that because I
Each
just,
state is different. That this is why it's confusing. Every state is different. So in Minneapolis, the total amount of money that you can accept from an individual is $5,000.
Yes.
All right, so that's excellent. So you can see if you're running for mayor in the city of Irvine in Orange County, 490, it might even be $500 now. That is a lot of people that you need to go to raise $10,000. It's just, so we can talk more with you, Brenda, about how, especially after Karina's presentation on Saturday, tomorrow afternoon, because she'll go through it. And like I said, we have the spreadsheet for putting a finance budget together is generic. So you should be able to use that without, but we can talk about it. You should still be able to use that. Michelle, how about Wahaber? What is the total contribution for you?
I think it's 2,000, but I'm gonna look into that definitely more. I know I have somebody I can call right away to get that.
Does the La Habra clerk have that information? Does La
You
Habra have?
know, I went to go see her and turn in my papers yesterday, and she says she doesn't have anything for me until July. So I'm like, okay, I'll see what I can find on my own. She's all, because there's going to be updates, so I don't have anything to give you right now.
All right, downside. That is a downside. So in Orange County, if you run for city council and school board, you don't go through a primary. Your election is in November. And because of that, they focus on the leadership. The Orange County Register of Voters and the individual cities focus on the June 5th primary, or June 7th, I guess it is here. I'm not sure. It's June. So they don't update the handbooks for the local candidates until July, because the filing deadline is the first or second week in August. So this already puts local candidates behind the 8 ball, because now you have only from August to the end of October to campaign.
Yeah.
But you should be able to find out what the limits are, or close to it. At least you know what the limits are from last time.
Yeah. And if I remember, I was in council the day that they announced it. I want to say it's 2, but I'm going to do some research right now.
200 or 2,000?
2,000.
Nice.
Okay, Karen, can I ask another question?
Ask a million questions.
Okay, so when I ran last year, and they suggest that you get endorsements, and that's where you get most of your non-contribute funds. And that's how you get free volunteers and free campaign managers. Is that not like how y'all do it in California?
No. So maybe what I need to do is, no, we don't do it that way. So endorsements are important, but it kind of takes away from everything else. So people spend all their time chasing endorsements down, weeks and months. And then what falls behind is the voter outreach. So I'm not saying that endorsements aren't important, because they are. So so getting endorsements is a good project, say for the campaign manager or for someone else on your team, so that you can be focusing on campaigning.
Oh, okay. Because I know our endorsements, that's how, if you get endorsed by the newspaper, you get your name and pictures in the newspaper. You can get endorsed by a news like Fox channel or Channel 4, Channel 5. That's what our candidates run for. And that's what they focus on, is all the endorsements. Because like when I ran for office, so many people, after they found out, well, there was 2 African Americans running. One, she just put her name on it. And I was actually running. And once they found out the other candidate was not really running, she just wanted to see if she was going to get any votes, then they came after me. And that's how I got most of my volunteers and everything else after that. That's why I was just asking, because it wasn't really, in our city, it's not really about the money per se. It is, but most of our promotions came from our endorsers. Did that make sense?
Yeah, so
Okay.
Victor is going to be, he's an excellent organizer. And he will give you ideas of how you get volunteers and just how to organize your voter outreach. He's a grassroots community organizer. It's what he does. And he lives in a predominantly Latinx neighborhood in Huntington Beach. That may mean nothing to you, but in Huntington Beach, it's like foo-foo shishi white people.
Mhm.
And there are just pockets of minority communities. I don't like to use that word. But so it is, I mean, he and others have really shone a light on that community with the kind of outreach. It's because of the grassroots organizing that he's done.
Okay.
That's why he's so good at being able to tap people who never were involved before, didn't think about politics before. And it's just this one-on-one. Look, these are my ideas on how, this system is not working for us.
Okay.
And these are my ideas on how to change that system. So maybe I can take a look at your materials, and
Okay.
after you've heard Victor, and
Okay.
after you've listened to Karina, then we
Okay.
can see how that works in the ninth
Okay.
ward for you. Well, I guess it's Minneapolis, right?
Yeah, it's Minneapolis now. But I live in the 9th ward, but it's pretty big, because after the election, I was number 2 on the election, and everybody was upset that I didn't win, but it was because I didn't have enough endorsements. And that was kind of weird. And that's why everybody came after me. This is probably like my 4th training since the election, because like I said yesterday, the Republicans even came after me because I don't know, I think they just want a token, but that's what I say. But other candidate, after they found out that I didn't I didn't win, a lot of endorsement companies came after me. So I just finished my Renew training on how to get the proper manager, campaign manager. As a matter of fact, I finished that yesterday. And then the Democratic Party, I'm doing their training online and in person. So yeah.
No such thing as too much training, I always say.
Right. So I think
That
I'm
was-
better prepared now for the upcoming election. So yeah, I was just wondering, but
Go ahead.
I don't want to hold you up. No,
You're not.
I'm sorry.
No. Go ahead.
No, that was it. But they all said, you should focus on your endorsements, because certain endorsements can get you TV time and airtime. Because even Facebook even endorses, and I did not know that. So, and they have Facebook and Twitter and all, they are connected. So that's why I was wondering, because it wasn't really a financial race in our level. It was more of who was endorsing you. And that was every time I had an interview with the newspaper, it was like, who's your endorser? Who's your endorser? And I'm like, why is everybody asking me about endorsement? But I learned after the race that it is about who endorses you. And they make sure your name and your images get out. So that's, but I'm happy to learn as much as I want to, as much as I can right now. So that's why I'm here.
Now, Jessica, what kind of, are you running into any challenges at this juncture with your campaign? You've already had a kickoff.
I did have a kickoff, yes. I think challenges kind of to what you spoke about is probably balancing the time between asking people for endorsements, fundraising, and voter reach out. So I think that's where I'm at, is where to put my time between each of those three things that need to get done. But definitely, yes, voter outreach is the most important. And then endorsements are important, but it's the voters, I think, that really count at the end of the day.
Yep, I agree. So let me ask you this. Do you have a treasurer?
I do, yes. It is Joanna.
Joanna, okay. And do you have someone helping you with the day-to-day stuff?
I do, yes.
All right, cool. All right, so it's just for you, it's organizing and time management.
Yes.
Because you work during the day too, but that's another thing.
Yes, that's another thing.
Michelle, how about you? What kind of challenges have you been encountering?
I'm just getting started. Like I told you, I just turned in my paperwork the other day. I had just gone for my interviews and stuff for the open seat. So I just finished that and I wanted to make sure I got past that. They
Excellent.
picked another person for an interim for right now. So I'm kicking it off this week, making videos, starting my website, doing that kinds of stuff. I have to put my committee together. I have a lot of people saying they want to be on my committee. I just need to know, how am I going to choose all these people? You know, definitely, you know, I'm going to choose people that have done this before, you know, that it's not new to them, especially like treasurer and campaign manager and stuff. So, you know, that's my goal for this week, getting that stuff done.
All right, excellent, excellent. Egypt. I'm blabbing the whole time. I was just wondering if you had some thoughts.
It's funny because I was literally typing something in the in the question box, so I'll just delete it. I have one particular question because I know that, and again, I'm not, you know, looking to run. I want to sharpen my skills in campaigning and supporting other people in office. But for like, I guess your larger seats and the team that you build, could you possibly help them transition into any like roles? Because I know a lot of people who are helping in a campaign would sometimes want to transition into like a more permanent job, depending, of course, on the type of seat that you are elected into. So
All right, that's a good question, a very good question. So there are people who work on campaigns with the idea that should their candidate win, and of course they're pretty confident they will, then the candidate will hire them when they get elected. So that's dicey for women. Has been a not dicey, has been a challenge for women. Because in the past, it's not as bad as it used to be, but in the past, it was difficult for a person who's doing the hiring on the elected side, which is not necessarily the candidate who won, but the person hiring on the policy side, they see campaign people as campaign people. They don't see them as being capable of doing policy work. And that's changing, but and women, because women are in traditional roles on campaigns, that is changing. Campaigns were, until recently, was a man's world. Men were hired as campaign managers. Women never were. If you recall, what's her name, Brenda? From who wrote the book about cooking with grease, Donna Brazile.
Yes.
Donna Brazile is my age. Way back when She was the first woman ever hired as a campaign manager for a presidential candidate. And that was for, who did she work for?
Bill Clinton, wasn't
No, not Bill Clinton. She started out with Jesse Jackson, but then went with, I can't remember now, Al Gore.
it?
She was
Yeah.
Al Gore's campaign manager. Not only was she the first woman ever, but the first woman of color. She took shit on a daily basis. She was criticized in ways that men are never well, we have the Supreme Court nominee hearings to see the questions that this woman, who is more qualified than any of those people sitting there and certainly on the bench, which the kinds of questioning she had to endure. Anyway, Donna Brazil was the first. Since then, there have been women who have become campaign managers and done so successfully, but it was always a man's role. Women were traditionally fundraisers and they were traditionally administrative. So getting that transition to a policy job was tough. Like I said, more women are breaking into it. Men were the media consultants. They did the videos, they did the ads, they did the writing for the mail. Now women are taking that over. And women are really good women are doing digital media. But all of those roles traditionally belong to men. So that is changing. And I think that you have a better chance as a woman if you're working for a woman candidate. I will say that.
Thank you.
That was a good question, Egypt. I hope I answered it.
Yeah, you did. Thank you.
Miss Brenda Williams, we haven't heard from you.
No, I'm listening tonight. But but I like I think we should be aware that and I'm not gender biased, but I just see so much value in women in terms of how we have progressed in the political arena. As Karen said, I mean, Donna Brazil was fantastic. She was, and I'm a little biased because, and you know what I liked about it? Because someone said something about like even with when you're running and the beat. I think yesterday Katrina said about being accessible. And I remember when Karen, don't you remember when we had that big, what controversy was it? And I wrote to Donna Brazil, didn't even know her. And I found her email and wrote to her, and we start conversating via email. And she responded, I responded, she responded, and then I was fortunate enough to meet her at what was it? At the
Convention.
at the convention where they
Obama's
nominated Obama in Colorado, the first convention. And so Karen and I went, we met her and got her book. But she also came to Flint, Egypt. She came to Mott College. I met her. In fact, I met her at Mott College also. She came in, but I just think there was such a value, and sometimes we have not allowed ourselves to really have faith in ourselves as women, and we sometimes have that intimidating type of feeling. But it's changing. You know, I look at Egypt, and yes, she's smiling, but I have been talking to her because when I met her, I saw something in her that I could see in a political seat. And I hate the word political because it has a very negative description. I like to say public policy because I look at our legislators as ones who are implementing public policy, which is for the betterment of the lives of the citizens. And so when I look at even Egypt, and she says, no, I'm not running. But those are the type of people we have to identify. And sometimes women, if we go back from a sociological standpoint, we sometimes got too petty. We get too petty with each other. as woman to woman. But we got to be able to look across the room and build up women, because no one person can be in a position for life. And sometimes when you stay too long, your replacement is not what is needed. But it's because of the way we go in and the way we come out that we sometimes can develop a negative result, and the transition can be impacted. But yeah, Karen, I'm gonna keep talking to Egypt because I'm I just think that Egypt really has not told you about herself, because I'm listening to this, Egypt, and I think about you as she's done community organizing. She sits on the juvenile justice state board. She works with the child abuse. So that's all public policy issues that we need to have people like her at the table making decisions for us as residents of a particular district area. But I'm just enjoying listening to you all because you're making me think.
Babe, can you come and turn off mom's?
So, good points. Brenda, very good points. Does anybody else have some thoughts? Miss Kate?
Thank you.
Like Brenda Williams, I'm enjoying listening to everyone's thoughts tonight. I'm learning a lot.
All right, do you guys want to take a quick break before the esteemed Dr. Jose F. Moreno addresses us this evening? Would you like to take a 5 to 7 minute break? How about if we come back at 7:30?
So that'd be what, 8 minutes?
Yep.
Okay.
Egypt, my sister and I read your application, but maybe people, you could tell us a little bit about your background.
Oh, sure, sure. Where do I start? So
Your
I transitioned from like the social work field of case management and victim advocacy, housing case management, and to working as a labor union organizer for the UFCW, then into campaign work. I actually, before COVID happened, was directing a campaign to amend the Elliott Larson Civil Rights Act to extend housing and employment protections to LGBTQ people and religious minorities. And then I still identify myself as a community and political organizer. So I did that with Planned Parenthood Advocates of Michigan. And so I gained a lot of experience. I sit on the governor's task force of child abuse and neglect and the Michigan Supreme Court Foster Care Review Board. And I own a business. So I'm owner of the BIPOC and bookstore in Flint, Michigan. And I really see that bookstore as an extension of my organizing work. So I get to do a lot of fun things like develop programs and initiatives that reflect the needs of the community. So I'm extremely active and I'm very passionate about helping, vulnerable peoples. I personally grew up in a very tumultuous environment, precarious conditions, mental health, substance abuse. I actually was expelled from high school. So I was a GED holder, then I transitioned, got my degree, bachelor's degree in political science. I'm currently studying for the LSAT because I want to specialize in juvenile justice law, which is why I'm very ambivalent about even wanting to run for any type of political seat, because I just know that it's going to occupy a lot of my time. And I know that because of my experience working on campaigns. And I don't know if I can take it. I see sometimes how these politicians, really great candidates can get so much flack just because the fact that they're politicians. And that's just the, unfortunate perception that a lot of politicians have, for good reason for sometimes. So I just don't think I could take it. I don't think I can take it. So I'm really honest with myself, but I really do want to support other women into elected seats, whether judicial or, anything. So that's why I'm here today. But and I'm really grateful, for Brenda, who's my mentor and very close friend, for even telling me about this opportunity. So I'm glad to be here.
Egypt, do you own the bookstore that sent me a book?
Yes,
Something.
yes.
I brought this up at the Wakanda Sister Saturday Zoom. Egypt, that note that you sent, I've saved it. I read the book, loved it, because I read something very similar, like I can't remember the title of it right now. Very similar, but your note, continue to learn. I saved that. Was so beautiful. Thank you.
No, that wasn't even me. You know who that was? That is the author of the book. So I put the signature, and that is the message that she puts on every single one of the book.
I thought it came from you because
That came from her.
It was just so beautiful.
I know. I know. I love it. But yeah, I can't take credit for that. That's the author.
Take credit for it, because I believed it was from you.
Well, we did have to pay a pretty penny to get her to do the event, so I'll take credit for that part.
It was I really learned a lot from that book.
Hood Feminism
Pardon me?
is the Hood Feminism book, right?
It's about the women's suffragist movement.
Yep.
We talk about it all the time. Here I am, white, right? And this has just opened my eyes, because it was no way inclusive. And it left out anyone who wasn't white.
Yes.
In fact, I read a piece that Sojourner was brought to a suffragist
Yes.
meeting. I mean, here's a woman who like was a slave for how
Yes.
long? She comes into the room black and had no education, no nothing, and they were ready to throw her out. In
Yeah.
fact, they did. And the woman she came with said, "But wait a minute." And finally, she was let in. But that is the history that we
Yes.
do not learn about.
Yes, you're right about that. That book is phenomenal. And I think anybody who wants to know more about just the feminist movement and just the different, needs and the intersectionality of being a woman needs to read that book. It's Hood Feminism by Mickey Kendall, by the way. So it's the movement, the women that a movement forgot. Hood Feminism, a movement that
I can see it from
the
here.
women that a movement forgot. Yes.
It requires my getting up to go and get it. And that
If you
is-
put in Hood Feminism, it's gonna pop up. Hood Feminism, Mickey Kendall.
I'm gonna go get it,
Mhm.
guys. So all right, I had other questions. I also was hoping that Jessica and Michelle could give us their backgrounds as well. We didn't get to do that yesterday because, the screen sharing.
Okay, I'll go first really
Okay.
quickly. I've lived in my city my whole life. My parents moved here when I was a small baby. I come from a family of 7 kids. We went to private school, but like Egypt, we come from a very abused family. Very, very abused. So I went to high school. My dad left. I became a single mom at 20. All of a sudden, I was by myself, and I raised my son and met my husband. And all these years, my dad and my parents were very involved with the community. They were very affluent in the community. Nobody knew what was going on. So I've made it my mission in the community to help people that are like me. So as a single mom, I had a really good job, but I didn't make enough money. So I was constantly hungry. So my biggest thing with our community is how many single moms are struggling like I was, trying to get by, trying to take care of themselves, trying to, provide for my kid. And I had enough money for my bills and to take care of the baby. I didn't have enough for me. So when I met my husband, I'm 26 years old. I was 91 pounds because I wasn't eating. I didn't have enough money. 91 pounds. When I left high school, I was 68 pounds. That's how badly abused we were when we were young. So I kind of sit there. My husband's a high school teacher. So I'm always telling them, look for the kids that were like me. When they're not fed, when they have their head down, when they're not doing their work, something's going on. And he's been in the EMS for years. So him and I kind of go back and forth. So in the things that I do in the community, I own a business, but I use it to put myself into rooms to help people in my community. So other single moms, I've been an advocate and somebody that has helped women for years get out of rape situations, to get out of bad situations. Somebody that was like me in an abusive situation, I help women get restraining orders and file child support. And I've been doing that for, I want to say 20 years. And I've been doing that because of the situations that I've been in. I went to school after my daughter was born. She just turned 18. So it was like couple months after my daughter was born. Went to school for sociology and psychology with an emphasis on kids that are disabled in the system that were like me. Really wish my brothers and sisters and I had gone into care. We didn't. We ended up, all my brothers and sisters are a mess. All of us. I think I'm the only one that's come out of it, but I put myself into counseling as soon as I got my job. As soon as I started working for the union, 3 months later, the day I was okayed for my insurance, I took myself to the doctors because I knew there was stuff I needed to fix and heal. and I put myself into counseling. So that has been my trajectory all these years, finding women that I can help. I've had homeless people living with us. I've done all kinds of stuff. So I'm a planning commissioner for our city. I help create programs in our community. I started the art walk in La Habra so that I can reach these families, because there's been a lot of segregation here in La Habra, especially in this area. Orange County is big for it, but this is one community that we are 93% minority in the public schools, but we're 68% minority in the community. And nobody wants to help these people in our community. It is a huge fight every day. So like I said at the beginning yesterday, I make sure I put myself in rooms and on committees, on boards and stuff, so that I can find those families, those McKinney-Vento families, those single moms, those whatever I can do. So I think running for council is just a next step, but I'm not done here. Now that my kids are, my youngest is finally graduating high school, so I'm hitting the ground running. I'm gonna do so much more than I have been. But you know, going back, I started school. I was transferring to UCLA, and we found out my kids had a genetic disorder, so I put school off. I'm like one class away from moving over to my bachelor's. I'm gonna continue that. I have to. I have to do this for the kids. They're finally settled. They're doing pretty good. You know, I've got them both they're in college, you know, so this is my time so I can watch them and then keep going in my direction. And I can start, you know, finishing all my stuff that I wanted to. And this is just the tip of the iceberg of what I want to do. It really is. So thank you guys for listening. Karen, you're muted.
That was beautiful.
Thank
And,
you.
and it
I've been trying.
And I can hear your story. And it's the type of story that I think that the average citizen can identify with.
Yeah, and we don't have enough people with empathy in our communities that actually are making changes for people that, you know, have disabled families that are like we're an in-betweener. We've been taking care of my grandparents and our kids with disabilities. It's like how many people, you know, have that? Our community is aging. We are not getting any new families at all in our city. We are becoming big on seniors and disabled people. Why are we not including them in the conversation? Everybody leaves them out. And that's constantly my argument. I'm like one soul fighting for all this. So it's like, I've been trying to build a team for years. And I think it's the time. A lot of people feel it's the time. We need to do this. Karen, you're muted. I don't think she hears it. We can't hear you.
Nobody told me I was on mute. I said, I'm very, very proud of you. It could not have been easy. I don't, for a minute, have any doubts that the challenges you were facing were difficult at best, and you were doing it on your own as a single mother, even growing up. And I'm just proud, so proud of what you've accomplished and what your goals are.
Thank you. And you know, I wouldn't be this far though, if it hadn't been for my husband that's been super supportive of me. You know, since we met, we married, we were 28 years old. My son was 7. Told him all I want to do is go to school. I'll marry you. Great. You know, I never even thought of myself being somebody that would get married. Like, I'm going to go to school and I'm going to concentrate on me too. And he's like, absolutely. So he's been 100% supportive of everything I've done. So that's helped a lot.
That is so great. So Brenda Short, we need to hear from you and need to hear from Jessica. Jose is due here shortly. So We have, because of screen sharing issues yesterday, this was supposed to have taken place yesterday. So think of what you want to tell the group, and we can catch you tomorrow or Sunday afternoon when we have a huge gap of time. Is that good with you? Because Jessica, I want to hear your background. We do. And Brenda Short, we want to hear your background.
That works.
Pardon me?
That works. There's
That's fine.
So I'm not hearing. All right, let me turn my
Can you
video
hear me
off
now?
for a minute.
Are we supposed to tell our story now or tomorrow? That's what I'm kind of confused of.
They said tomorrow or Sunday.
Okay,
Because Jose is due here any second,
okay.
like at
Okay.
7:50 and it's 7:48-ish. All right, so wait a minute. So I didn't miss anybody. All right, Egypt. This is the book. Can you guys see it?
Yes.
It's backwards.
Yep, it's hood feminism.
But
Yep.
here's the note. It was so beautiful.
Yeah, and you put the so that's a sticker. It says signature sticker. Because of COVID, we had that virtual book discussion in lieu of in person. So you can actually take that apart and stick it on the front part cover of your book, and that's her signature.
Cool. So it's Hood Feminism, Notes from the Women That a Movement Forgot. Mickey Kendall. It's an excellent book. Excellent. And then I read this one that's called White Tears, Brown Scars, How White Feminism Betrays Women of Color. Ruby Hamad. It was also an excellent book. But I really enjoyed this one. I read this one first and then read your Hood Feminism. So now, Egypt, do you have online sessions, book discussions?
Can you say that again? I don't know, something happened.
Do you have online book discussions with your bookstore?
No, we don't, not yet, not yet. But we do have like virtual, well, sometimes we do depending on like the type of event that we have. So, yes, on occasion.
All right, keep
Yeah.
us posted because
With the author,
I love
yeah.
those. I love them.
I definitely will. And I'll actually put the name of the business and stuff in the box in case anybody ever wants to order something or just see what we have going on.
Okay. Hi, Jose.
Hi, Karen. Hi, everyone.
Very thrilled to have you tonight. And I'm going to give people some background for those that don't know. So, full disclosure, I worked on Jose's city council race in 2018 when he was in that group to run in Anaheim, first time ever district held elections. Anaheim was the first city to have district held elections. For those of you outside of California, Jose, we have 2 women from Flint, Michigan, and a mayoral candidate from Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Nice.
So everybody, it's not the case now. There are 12, maybe 13 cities out of 34 now, but it used to be that everybody ran in the whole city. So Anaheim is the largest city in the county. Jose was a plaintiff in a lawsuit that was brought against the city of Anaheim in violation of the Voting Rights Act. So the in-district, well, he can explain that to you. But anyway, Jose was my zillions of campaigns and zillions of years working on campaigns. Jose was unique. One, he had a contingent of followers, and I don't even know if that's the right word to use. He has spent so much time in his community getting to know that people within the community. I mean, he's a community organizing person. And he was on the school board, Anaheim School Board, and then ran for the city council. Anyway, I was on his campaign to raise money. And unlike all the other candidates, Jose was extremely particular about who he raised money from. So that was frustrating for me until I realized just how good that was. He wasn't going to the usual round of suspects of corporate contributors. And see, my background in Orange County had been working for candidates who raised money almost exclusively from political action committees, almost no money from individuals, none, unless they were, max out donors. So it was an glorious experience to see just how grassroots organizing for a campaign works and how important it is to get $3 contributions and $1 contributions and $5 contributions, because those people are invested in you as the candidate and invested in the issues within the community. So enough about me. Jose, yay.
Thank you, Karen. Always humbled with your introductions. Always humbling. Flint, Michigan. We were talking about Flint, Michigan, actually yesterday, a group of us, because we said, isn't it interesting how our federal government can come up with $2 billion for a war effort, but can't come up with the money to clean water in Flint? It took several years for them to say, we don't know if we have the money. And so I start with that because congratulations to all the work y'all have been doing, those of you who are from Flint, because we're cheering you on from afar as best we can, trying to send you people in Congress that can actually see the value of what it means for working class, working poor families to have just the very basics while we're so worried about everything abroad. What Cori Bush said, if people can't pay rent here, why are we sending so much millions of dollars for missile defense systems against Palestinians, which is crazy. At any rate, so I'll just try to keep it as brief as I can. I prefer much more conversations. What I could be helpful in terms of experiences or insights or opinions. Some I'm just as much interested in hearing your voices and what you would find helpful. Just a couple of points from me. So we could get the conversation going is, as Karen said, we did do a lot of work in our community. And, one of the hard things about running for political office is that every consultant will tell you, you always got to talk about you, right? And good community-minded people centered in cultural ways, such as I've been through my family process and collective conscious process of my communities, we just don't talk about me. We don't talk about I. We don't put our picture out and say, I'm the one that's going to save you. I'm your brown Jesus. We just don't do that, right? In that way. So it was really tough to push back on consultants, often people who wanted us to win, who would give their time to say, we got to keep talking about we. We got to keep talking about we. And we were told that that's not the way to go. You got to talk about me. And so what's tough is the seductive nature of that. I resisted it as much as I could, because for me at least, culturally, once you get into a discussion over 6 months, 8 months, 10 months of only talking about you and what you're going to do, then when you get into office, it's all about you. And it becomes all about you staying in office, right? So it's a real fine line that I found is a huge struggle, both culturally and ethically, about campaigns. So the focus for us in that effort, through the community work we had been doing for years, is the way that I resolved it is to keep talking about issues, just to keep talking about issues. And you could read my profile. So I would go to campaign events, and we would call them community meetings. We would call them friend raisers, not fundraisers. We rarely, if anything, and Karen hated us for this. I resisted putting on flyers. doing the level of giving that we like to do oftentimes, which is fair to do and rational. But we knew that there was no way we were going to raise enough money to compete on money. For context, in Anaheim, we are a company town. We're the land of Disney. It's the most powerful media conglomerate in the world. They have a boundless amount of dollars. And so for context, we have seen only one council member in the last 50 years even raise the idea of a gate tax on Disney. We don't have a gate tax in Disney. There's no taxes. They don't pay any gate taxes. And over the years, they've received hundreds of millions of dollars in corporate subsidies. They even got a previous council to guarantee them a 45-year local tax exemption from the city. And what was egregious about that is there is no local tax on Disney. So they literally got the council to say, if there ever is a tax levied on gate revenues, the city will reimburse Disney that money. It's crazy. So that's the backdrop of our context. And all of you have a context where somebody or some entity invests a lot of money disproportionately to get their candidates elected. There is a special interest in every city, in every school district that is looking to get their people in. So for us, we knew we would never compete at the dollar level. What we knew we could do, which is why we fought for districts, is we went from having 125,000 registered voters, which is our city, running an election that had to reach that many people, which is where you need a lot of money, to breaking the city into districts that then meant 20,000 voters. That meant about 6,000 households. And we said, we could actually just cover the ground on that. If we break it up into ways that the way I grew up poor, so the way poor people do it, how do you figure out how many tacos to get on Monday and get to, a hamburger on Tuesday? So we just use that math, the local math of community, to say, if we get 5 people to walk this many blocks, they can actually cover every house by dropping our literature. And if we can get 5 people that live in that neighborhood, then that word is gold. That word is gold. So that was our effort. We just reached into all of the friends that we had, all of the community partners we had engaged with, families we worked with, never out of political interest. We always worked with them around community empowerment and engagement. And so that's how we built our wealth, a community wealth, so to speak, a reservoir of trust and of faith and of love with one another, but focused first and foremost on the issues. So for us, it was, hey, so we're a city of 360,000 people. We have the Disney Corporation, and we're told that we're fortunate as a city to have Disneyland. Because of them, we're this incredible city. We have a professional baseball team, the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim, and the Anaheim Ducks. Like no other city has that of this size. So we began to, and they would campaign with their big dollars. For context, Disney spent overall over $2 million for city council races in our city. In my district alone, to reach 20,000 voters, they spent $700,000 to $800,000 just in our district. With a big chunk of that attacking me as a Marxist, communist, left-wing professor who wants to take your babies to concentration schools and get them to believe in, right, that kind of stuff. They also painted our campaign as a campaign that was pro-gang, that we didn't value the police, that we were unpatriotic, all those things, and included some attacks on families. So they used all their money. We raised about, at the end of the day, about $50,000. So $50,000 to $700,000. So for us, again, we went back to, okay, when we do our community fundraising events, we have to convert those to the asset we have, which is the wealth of community, which is, can we get you to get 4 or 5 other people in your neighborhood to if we give you a list of a 5-block radius of voters in your neighborhood that you know, can we ask you to take the next 4 or 5 days to walk that neighborhood? Instead of saying to them, come on a Saturday for 2 hours and knock on all these doors that maybe you don't even know, people you don't know another part of the city or the district. And folks said, well, you know, I have some time on Monday, I have some time on Thursday. Can I just do it then? Yes. Just bring the folder back in a week. And so they took a week to walk their neighborhood. And that made a huge difference for us because people didn't feel the pressure that they only had 2 hours to give and they had to run off and then go to soccer practice or go to basketball practice or go to work to their second job. We said, take your time in talking to people. You're not rushed having to talk to people. Another thing about campaigns is don't spend too much time at the door, they told us, right? You're supposed to keep walking. And we said, no, we got to build relationships because if they get to know our volunteers, they're going to ask our volunteer, why is it so important that you're volunteering? So we were told, give them scripts. And we said, no scripts. We gave them talking points generally, like here's some issues that people may ask you about. Here's my position. But first and foremost, we trained our volunteers this way. You came today to help us for a reason. What is that reason? And that's what you need to talk about. Talk about why you are willing to spend your time, your precious time from your kids, or if you are a young person, why you're spending time here instead of hanging out somewhere. Why is it important for you to ask somebody to vote for this person, right? And so we took the time to really put that into the mindset of our volunteers. Own the campaign, right? Own the reason you're here. And for us, it was pretty clear in Anaheim. The picture is pretty stark, and I don't know if it would be the same in your context. In Anaheim, 360,000 people, Disneyland, you'd think that our roads are made of gold. You'd think that every child has a $20,000 scholarship to go to school in thanks to Disney. You'd think everybody has an $80,000 job waiting for them because Angels baseball's here, but it's absolutely not true. We have one public swimming pool in the entire city of Anaheim, 360,000 people, one public swimming pool. The city next to us, Santa Ana, which has per capita a much higher concentration of poverty than Anaheim, has 5 public swimming pools. And they don't have a Disneyland. They don't have a professional baseball team. So we said, you know, so we would share that with our volunteers, and they said, yeah, that's why I'm here. I've always wondered why do we only have one swimming pool, and why are our libraries closed on Sundays, and why do we keep hearing from the police that we don't have enough resources? They take 20 minutes to get to our house when we call when something's happening. We said, well, you know, the police actually get 50% of our budget. So the question isn't, do they get enough resources? It's why don't they respond? That's the question. We began to get asked by our volunteers, can I talk about our streets? How we have streets that have not been repaved in over 50 years in parts of our district, which happen to be the most Mexican part of the city. In our context in Anaheim, it's a 55% Latino city, Anaheim, 55%. 85% of the children in our schools are Latino kids. 96% are on free and reduced lunch. We have 4,000 children who are either homeless or living in unstable housing, right here in the happiest place on earth. So we began to talk about, we continued the conversation with our community about, isn't it time that we began to say, it's time, Anaheim, to really bring the people, the voices of people, and really open the lid, open the light, bring in the sunshine into City Hall to find out, where is our money going? Why doesn't Disney have a gate tax? Why do Disney workers, 10% of them report having been homeless while they're working for Disney? Why do Disney workers live in multi-generational family structures where the mother and father are working at the hotel, and now so is the daughter and the son, and they're living in the same apartment still? And there's 4 cars, and there's no parking, and it's overcrowded. And while we have a really good public utility system in Anaheim, we own our own public utilities, so our water, our electricity is really, really solid. What we did find is that many of the neighborhoods, the street lighting was really, really in neglect. And they would often call the city, and unless a council member called, they would not get much support. And because council members didn't live in those parts of the city, it would rarely ever happen. So that was our push to do that, is instead of focusing on money, we said to folks, look, if you could give us a little bit of money, we just need enough to get our message out, enough to get literature printed that we can drop at the door, enough that we could maybe send a mailer, and then enough so that maybe around the GOTV time, a week before the election, we can maybe give some of our volunteers some money to actually walk more hours if they needed some money. So what we did is we focused our resources on the messaging, most importantly, the messaging, not about Jose is going to change the city. We need to elect him. It's time for us to get people like Jose to the city, right? People like Jose, right? People that are not tied to an interest. And we made it very clear to people that if they came to our event, they were not expected to provide any resources. They were expected to provide their time when available. And we made the promise that we would not accept any corporate dollars that even though it was offered, I'll tell you it was offered. We did not accept any corporate dollars. We did get some good support from labor, but that was also a struggle because labor also wants, they're an interest, right? So they want some deliveries too. And we said, look, here's our basic commitment to you as labor because it's our basic values. We believe in collective bargaining. We believe you should be at the table. We believe there should be due process at the workplace. And we believe that everyone should make a living wage. That's my commitment to you. And I will fight for that tooth and nail every step of the way. So that was enough to get some. But the biggest labor groups in our city that play a role, and it may be true for you too, is the police union and our firefighters union, is the public safety union. They put so much money into their candidates. And it's not about getting the department more money. It's all about providing larger pensions, larger benefits, and larger salaries for police officers that frankly make really good money. And so they just wanted more. So I'll stop there because that's the one message I wanted to communicate, and I'm happy to take any questions or ask for or provide any clarifications. Is that for us, what was the most effective tool is not trying to get into the arms race of economics and money with special interests. It's to highlight in our campaign that those who get money are expected to deliver for the people who gave them the money. And that became clear to voters pretty quick. The second most effective thing that played out for us, even though that we didn't realize that was going to happen, is voters became pretty savvy when we really hit that message. Is we also asked our volunteers to tell folks at the door, when another campaign comes and knocks on your door, please make sure you ask them if they are paid to knock on your door or if they're volunteers, and ask them where they live. Ask them where they live. If they get paid, that's cool. If they live in the neighborhood, they're getting paid, that's good. A campaign can actually create some jobs for a local space. But ask them where they live. And here's what ended up happening. Voters began to ask that question. And we were hearing it. We were hearing it. Our volunteers would go for a second and third time to go knock on the same doors. And they said, you know what? I asked a young man who came knocked on my door. I asked him, had he ever met the candidate? The person said no. Said, and where are you paid or you volunteer? And they kind of hemmed-hawed around the question, like, well, I love to do this. This is just kind of my livelihood. I call it a vocation, it's not really about pay. Are you paid or not? So they started getting politic about it. And then was the key question, where do you live? Where do you live? Oh, in Riverside, which is an hour away from Anaheim. And so what we also did in our campaign is to educate the voters and even the non-voters, because non-voters live in homes with voters, is to spread the word. Spread the word. And our communities are really good at spreading the word. Spread the word. People are getting paid to come from out of town to convince you that somehow the candidate that's paying them is good for them. And then ask our campaign, where do you live? Where did you grow up? Or when did you move here? What are your concerns? Which park do you go to? Which schools do your kids go to? Or which school do you go to? Because a lot of our campaign folks were actually high school students who were the children of the resort workers. And so we would see on Saturdays in particular, you'd see a line of folks at our campaign office of parents dropping off their kids like it was a school day, dropping off their kids. And then I'd walk over to make sure to say hi to them and thank them for lending us their children, their high school kids, and say, no, thank you. It's because of you that he's willing to get up on a Saturday morning to do something, right? Because he sees the hard work that his parents are doing, right? Speaking about their son or their daughter. So, so being authentic in that and focused on the message, and that you are a messenger, and that it's a we, not an I, which is the hardest thing about campaigns, and just raising enough money to get the message out. Too many candidates I've noticed spend a lot of time raising a lot of money, trying to raise and keep up with the money, and you'll never keep up with the money if you're going against the big special interest of a particular municipality or district. And so to me, it's the better time for me. And Karen would always, I would always get on Karen's nerves. She's like, Jose, call time. You got to call people. It's like, I know, but I'm going to go to a community meeting and I got to like talk to people there. Karen's like, I know, but we need money. I said, okay. It's always a struggle. But that's my message. Be true, be you. And it's all about we and just enough money to compete. That's all you need. I hope that's helpful somehow. Karen, is that good enough? Is that okay?
Beautiful. Also, just as a side note, I gave up with the call time. I gave up. All right, let's just go with the flow here. All right, Egypt has a question. Mute.
There we go. Nice to meet you. I'm Egypt. I'm from Flint, Michigan, by the way.
Hi, Egypt.
And fellow community organizer. So
Nice.
I have a question about engagement with your volunteers. What are some ways in which you kept the momentum and I guess, you know, the hope alive pretty much with your volunteers and kept them optimistic throughout the campaign? What are some things that you've done?
One is that we didn't come in with any like cookie cutter or template of a script or a template of a messaging. We would often ask them, hey, so what do you think will work? What do you think will get people to want to get involved in either the campaign or that can get them to think seriously about voting for us? And so they would give us their ideas and then we would say, we love it. So we'd sit down, our kind of campaign coordinator volunteers, not one person that was involved in the organizing of the campaign, including the campaign manager, was paid. So we didn't have the money. And so it was a labor of love and mission. And so because of that, we said, look, we don't want you to just come to do the work. We want you to help us design the work. Here's some ideas we have of how we want to engage. What do you all think? So if we had draft literature, we would share it and say, what do you think? Will this work? We had community strategy meetings, not of 3 or 4 campaign consultants deciding what to do. We would open it up, and before we do our walks, we would have, okay, for next week, here's what we'd like to do. We'd invite 15, 20 people to just be in that conversation together. So it was being inclusive in the decision-making process of the messaging of the campaign, being consistent in that effort, reminding them that, frankly, that it was a David Goliath thing. And it's like, look, if we don't make it, then what happens to us? What happens to your brothers, your little brothers and sisters? What happens to your families? And so we really just kept reminding them of the mission, right? And we also kept reminding them and being very transparent about where we were getting money, how much money we had. We, of course, always try to make money or create enough resources to feed people. That was always important, You got to feed folks. And the other thing to that point is some of the folks didn't feel comfortable talking to people. So they said, can I bring food? Can I make food and bring it? A lot of the moms, can I bring food? My English isn't very good. That's okay. A lot of our voters are non-English speakers. That's cool. No, but I don't like to talk to strangers. Can I make some quesadillas for everybody in the morning? Absolutely. And then what happens is they come and then the other volunteers come and they're like, oh, this is cool. Because normally all you get is pizza, right? And somebody else would bring fruit because we kept emphasizing young people, we got to be healthy, and the moms love that. So we always, I'm not know if I'm answering your question in a direct way, Egypt, but it's always being authentic about and recognizing that we're doing this out of a love for our voices and for the possibilities that we can create. And I often quoted this book about education, urban education, from this author named Jean Agnon. Actually did a lot of work in Michigan. She called her book Radical Possibilities.
Yeah.
And we won by 76 votes. We won by 76 votes.
Wow.
It took 3 weeks for the counting of the votes because it was all provisional absentees. And the Friday on Monday was decided on a Monday, but the Friday before in that count for that day, we literally were tied. So it was going to be decided on that Monday, the final vote of the final 100 votes, and we won 76 of those votes. So we won by 76 votes after 750,000. So here's the other piece I'll say. As a candidate, where we do a lot of work, and that's why I think the world of Karen, because it's always about authentic campaigning. But for us, it was also that we weren't as prepared for, but I would urge you to think about this, is we weren't as prepared for governing. Like, we do a lot of work to get there. And then we get into office, we're like, holy smokes, what do I do now? And so what we did, this is just advice for when you win. My advice is to keep campaigning. And I don't mean in an electoral sense, is we said, we ran our campaign like we do our community campaign to raise awareness, to get people to go to City Hall and raise questions, to get involved in committees, to get involved and push our voices out there. That's how we ran our campaign. And then we said, that's how we're gonna run our office. So we kept having meetings in the same neighborhoods. And they often would say, people come every 4 years, like the election was just 2 months ago. What are you doing here? Right? We said, because we told you that we're here to bring the voices. So tell us, what do we got to do? And so that was a really good learning experience for us. And it worked out because when we went up for re-election 2 years later, Disney spent another $800,000 against us. We were able to raise about $80,000. And we won with 55% of the vote with 3 candidates. So we won by over 4,000 votes, right? Like, it was just, and so the secondary, if not co-primary advice I would give is, once you win, do not stop the message. A lot of people get the advice again. They get seduced and say, you know, you're in office now. You could do some really good stuff. You know, it was all cool. You were kind of like this radical campaign, fight the power. That was cool. Okay, well, so let's get serious now about governing. So what does that mean? Well, you know, you should sit down with Disney, figure out, you know, how you could work together. So I'll sit down with them. And here's how we're going to work together. They pay living wages. They give up tax subsidies. They do this. And that's what we fought for. And within 2 years, they gave up their tax subsidies because it was so embarrassing the way we were outing all of their stuff. So my advice is if you get in through a message, act on the message. Act on the message. People will see you fighting. People will see you honoring what you told them you were going to do, and being transparent in that work. Continue the community engagement, and ultimately they hit us twice as hard on the personal front. They really did attacks on my family. They said that I was working with the police to deport immigrants. I'm an immigrant. It's like, really? So they did everything they could, and we actually won by a landslide. And what we learned, other candidates that we were aligned with that were running for council that year as well, they chose not to do it that way. They chose to follow the advice of consultants and said, let's not try to get Disney too angry where they're spending a lot of money against us. Let's be bridge builders, right? Let's be peace builders. And we said, look, a peace builder in this context is to remain neutral, and to remain neutral is to sustain the status quo of marginality. We all know that, right? And so work and message the issues. That's what people want to see. They want to see people acting on the message. They chose not to. And as a result, in that campaign, I broke through and did a lot better than I did the first time. And a couple of candidates who did not do that didn't win. They didn't win. They got cute. That's what I said. They just got cute. They thought that if they looked non-threatening to the powers that be, the powers that be wouldn't come after them. Said, no, the powers that be already have their chosen candidate. They're not going to say, we're going to take it easy on you because, oh, you might be on our side at some point. No, they already handpicked their candidate. Their candidates made their commitment to them. They funded their campaign. You need to act and speak to the issues. And they chose not to, and they didn't make it. And we resoundingly won. And ironically, if one of those candidates who ran for mayor, who distanced themselves from our campaign because we were too radical, if they had joined us, that person lost by 400 votes. We won our area by 1,600 votes. Just in that area that we focused on, that person would have been our mayor. But they distanced themselves for fear of Disney and the police. So don't run your campaigns in fear. Don't govern in fear. Govern and run on the mission by which you're asking people to put you in that space. And as we just heard from our Supreme Court Justice to be, persevere and rise. I hope that answers the question. I don't know. I can get long-winded because I get really impassioned about that.
You know, you answered it perfectly. Thank you so much. Yes, you said so many wonderful things. Thank you.
Jose, I felt like I was at your campaign your first time. Karen called every night because it took some days to count your votes. So I felt like I was there in California because she would call and report to me where you were at that particular time. But again, and I know that this is a training that the emphasis is on increasing the participation of women. But what, after listening to you and I think I heard, well, Karen kept me up to date when you first ran. What this tells us, ladies, to me, is that you identify others outside of your base that can engage with you, and you become even a stronger team in trying to achieve not only the goal of participating, of women participating more, But Jose, you don't appear, I was watching you, and you don't appear to be intimidated by engaging with females in their quest to become also one at the table. And I think that sometimes when we get in office or you're running for office, you have to show that diversity of thinking, diversity of engaging. And a lot of times, from a historical perspective, I do think sometimes some men get intimidated by women at the table. Yet at the same time, sometimes women um, are fearful of saying too much or doing too much because of the historical uh, look of women. As they say, we had a place in society historically. But I have to commend you, and everything you said tonight um, is real. It gets to the real souls of the people, and not all these fancy. And I believe in I believe in business, but I also believe in social responsibility and corporate responsibility. And I think that we've left that, in the 70s and early 80s, that was the key term, corporate responsibility, social, and then we left it. It kind of it went out the door for a minute. But I think that you're seeing a resurgence of that type of thinking, because people like Egypt and her generation, they're beginning to speak about it in the way that we had spoken. But history always repeats itself. And if you stay along, as my grandmother used to say, if you live long enough, you'll see. It always come back around.
Mhm.
If you live long enough, you'll end up seeing the same fashion trends and the same discourse and the same
Yes.
policies, right? Brenda, thank you for those kind words. I'll add that an important marker for what you sense from me is I have 4 daughters and of course my wife, and so and of course my own family upbringing, my mom and my sister, and so I think the other thing that reminds me to at least to put out is the sense of that we all often are missing, is a sense of humility of what if I'm wrong?
Mhm.
Just what if I'm wrong? Like, let's just do the thought experiment. Okay, you're absolutely right, but what if you're wrong? Can we talk about that just for a bit? And so I've always, my mom taught me that. It's like, you just gotta always be thinking, what if somebody else sees something you don't see, right? And so that has really guided me throughout life. But the other thing I'll add too is that this one's kind of, will take a much longer discussion, but I'm also really weary of identity politics. I fight for representation. I believe in it, and that we have to reflect, our democracy has to reflect a multicultural, diverse, pluralistic democracy we were promised that we could become, right? And so I believe in that strongly. But I to this day still get pressure like, you're going to support Latinos, right? Because you're going to support so-and-so. And I said, no, not just because they're Latino. That's cool, but I got to know what their issues are.
Mhm.
What are the issues? Well, what kind of solidarity is that? Well, I don't know, but I ain't going to vote for Marco Rubio for president. I ain't going to vote for Ted Cruz for president. I'm not. I'm just not going to do that. I'm not going to vote for Nikki Haley because she's a woman. No, and I ain't voting for Hillary because she's a woman. Now, does that add? Absolutely. But, and that's why I guess I'll send the I'll say the reminder again is, it's about the issues that are impacting the people that you're seeking to represent.
Yeah.
And if you do that well, then it smokes out the folks who are trying to exploit the very fight we've all engaged in to get representation. There are people who all of a sudden discovered a Spanish surname in their family. All of a sudden they discovered it, and now they're putting it into their campaign literature. We see that often here. We see in Anaheim and in Orange County a number of women candidates running who are very corporate backed. And so it's like, I'm sorry, that just doesn't work, because you're not fighting for living wages, and that's not going to work. That's not going to work for us. We need people who are going to fight for living wages, for the lives of families, for the lives of children who don't have homes and stable housing, to understand homelessness as a function of the economy and divestments in mental health, both. And we need people who are going to focus on making sure that the lives of people are at the center of every decision. What in indigenous communities are considered right thinking 7 generations ahead. That's what we got to be thinking about. Not 7 corporate fiscal reports ahead, 7 generations ahead. So that would be the one kind of cautionary thing that I would ask you all to just really reflect on, because we are seeing a lot more trainings for Latino candidates, for candidates of color, for African American candidates, for women. And of course, the GOP is training for whiteness, right? That's the training for them. So, but I would just urge you in those trainings to just keep saying the identity matters, absolutely. But it doesn't matter more than the issue. Because that's what in my day we would call vendidos, right? People who said I am more important than whether I support the living conditions of the people that I grew up around and with. So I don't know if that makes any sense if I'm just blabbering at this point, but identity is necessary but not sufficient, is what I'm saying.
Oh, you're very right. In fact, and I talk about my community because if you go back, you have to look at it from a historical. This is a highly industrialized community. It was built upon with the General Motors. You had, I came here in 68, no, 66. And I didn't know, and you have to remember, we all have a history because I was born and raised a number of years in Mississippi. And then I went to Kansas City, Missouri, which was the first time in the 4th grade, was the first integrated school that I had attended. And then I came to Michigan. And to be honest with you, I still think the education as a child in Mississippi was better than what I saw kids getting here in Flint, Michigan, because it was built upon at the age when they leave high school, they were going to General Motors. And that's what that's what that was the thing here. And in Mississippi, I told them we were going to college. That I was never told I was going to go to a cotton field and pick a chop cotton, but I was going to college. But you're right, because sometimes even with Blacks, and I do believe we need diversity. We need to be sensitive to that. But at the same time, I do believe, I know we've had candidates and I've supported a non-Black when a Black was running, but I was doing the same thing you just spoke of. I look at not who you are as the 100, as the top thing. I look at what you are. And when I say the what, I have to look at as you have to have a sense of also discernment. And you have to look at how they have done things and perhaps what type of decision making they have done in the past, which is indicative of what I believe your value would be towards people in the community. And I tell people, not all white folks are bad and not all Black folks are good. So we had to, but a lot of times we use the race thing, even Blacks, whites, Hispanic, we use race as a basis when the message is totally different once they get in that seat. And so I think the way you express that is very well put. And it's something that I think that as we go forward and as the candidates get in their positions, they need to understand that but at the same time, understand we do want diversity, but we just don't want you there just to be there. We want you there because you are an added value, an asset to the community at large.
That's right.
But I really enjoyed what you said tonight.
Thank you, Brenda. And our challenge to kind of conclude that is within ourselves. Is we have to be willing to name that when people are exploiting the thirst that we have for representation, politics becomes in a game of exploiting what that thirst. And what I'm finding more and more is that these big special interests are able to find candidates that look like a community, that maybe even lived in the conditions of a community. But what they do is they find these candidates that have higher aspirations for political office or for economic mobility. And so they cultivate them. And our people are so desperate for representation that we assume a lot of things and project a lot of things onto those candidates just because of the way they look, or because they speak a language like ours, or they grew up in a similar context. And we don't even ask them. We're enamored by the 15-minute intro of their life story, and that's how you got my vote. It's like, okay, but how did that life story play out for you when now you're voting on the living wage ordinance? Does it matter to you, right? How does your life story inform whether we're going to focus COVID vaccine clinics in the very community you grew up in versus in the hills? How does your life story help that? And so we have to keep reminding our communities that they have to keep asking the second and third question after the life story. Because too often, again, we're so thirsty for representation that we don't think to ask that second or third question of candidates. And we should be asking that of each other. And that's, as a Democrat, frustrated with our party, thoroughly frustrated with our party. Because somebody was trying to recruit me this morning to leave the party. And I said, why? They said, because, you know, Democrats are the party of tomorrow. Everything's like, oh, tomorrow, tomorrow, tomorrow. And Republicans are the party of, we just don't want you here. We just don't want you here. So they said, just go no party and let's build a third party. And I said, well, you have a lot of valid points there. But we're going to keep fighting, at least locally, on the Democratic Party front. Like, we have a good platform. Let's act on it. Let's act on it.
Yeah. I wanted to say a couple things. I'm here in La Habra, so I'm really, really close to you.
Yeah.
I started following you through Al Jabbar. Him and I were working on vaccines for our community, so that's how I found you. I'm so glad you're here. I hope you and I can connect in the future. But I really, really appreciate you saying, setting boundaries for unions, setting boundaries for, you know, contributions. We have a person here in La Habra, just to your point, grew up in the camps in La Habra. His family was part of the segregation, but he's bought by corporates. He's bought by developers. He's a Republican now. And they all, you know, think, oh, he's a person from our community and he's a part of us, and his family grew up a part of us. And, you know, that whole thing that you're saying, but he doesn't vote on anything. He recuses himself from everything. He takes tons of money. That is who I'm going to go after. He is the reason why I'm doing this. He needs to stop doing that. And he's selling our community, you know, one piece at a time. And everybody's scared of him. I'm not.
Good for you, Michelle. Good for
I
you.
grew
Well, let
up
me
with him.
know how I can help.
We
Yeah,
can't let that happen. We have to move past that. And like you said, when I went up against Westridge for our project from Lenars, I was the spearheaded person, but I didn't reach out to just people to help. I went to different neighborhoods, just like you said. So it's amazing that you're talking about this. And I never even thought to put myself to do something like that, to go to the different communities and the different neighborhoods for help. It's such a great idea. And I used it before. I'm definitely going to be using that now. I've lived in La Habra my whole life, so it'll work. It will.
Yeah. And those neighborhoods often do not get people knocking on their doors. They get a lot of mailers.
Oh, they do. Oh, yeah.
Because they're not the high propensity voting neighborhoods.
And those were the ones I went to go find vaccinations for. Yep. Nobody wanted to vaccinate them. Nobody wanted to go in those neighborhoods and communities. I did. I started calling their kids and their grandkids. I grew up with these people. I got so many people vaccinated just by doing that, just by making a few calls. It's the same thing. Right. So what a great idea.
Right. And that's where, you know, and with the campaign to governance is such a critically important thing to be thinking about, because people stop reaching out to those neighborhoods once they get elected, and they come back 4 years later.
Yeah.
And so we kept going back. We kept going back because we knew we needed them to continue the energy so that when we propose ideas, they could join us at city council. They can send in emails or see their council member from their area or the mayor in their area and tell them, hey, we want this, right? Why aren't you supporting us? And get on social media, most importantly. Social media is a big, and spread the word on social media. So what we learned is that a lot of campaign consultants do not like their candidates going into areas where there's not high propensity voters, right? It's go after the high propensity voter, use your money that.
Thank you, though. I'll be sending you a message. This is
Yes,
great.
let me know how it could be helpful right
Thank
here. We have a lot of good networks in La Habra. Guadalajara, they call it.
Yeah, and you know what? That's actually was used as a bad connotation. It's not anymore.
That's right.
It's not anymore. It's a good one.
Hi, Councilmember. Good
Hi,
to see you
Jessica.
again. Thank you for your words tonight. I really resonated with a lot of what you said, especially the you and we part in my messaging. I feel like it's hard to talk about yourself. I'm definitely in the stages. I did want to ask you a question though. When you're talking to the community and you're engaging with them and you're hearing their issues, how do you prioritize now as a council member in addressing those issues and making sure they're addressed equitably, I guess would be the word to use?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's the part about governance. Like, how do you? Because we don't. There's not a lot of folks that, at least from the mindset that I felt that we got into office with. I just again just kept thinking as an organizer and the campaign work is I just kept having community meetings and going back. And what I would do though is I would take staff with me, right? So at that point, as a councilor, I'd say, hey, Director of Public Works, I want you to go to this community meeting with me because there's concerns about this. And police department, I need you to have community policing there as well. And we just did one last night, actually. And community services. And so we would have 4 different departments there that would give little 5-minute spiels about what they do. And then I would just open it up. It wasn't all presentations. It's all like, okay, what are your concerns that you're seeing in the neighborhood? And then they would raise them. And because they're being raised in front of a council member, they would get attention. So then it was incumbent upon me to not go back to the same neighborhoods, but to go to different neighborhoods where I knew the issues were one of neglect and introduce the neighborhood to the staff. And what I have found is once the neighborhood creates a relationship with staff members, you don't need the council member anymore because now there's a relationship. And so my kind of work has been, okay, we're gonna be in office because we have terms, so I'm termed out in December. So once the work of any good, I think, I shouldn't say good, but effective organizing is capacity building for people to be able to advocate with one another and not that person doesn't have to call me. That neighbor doesn't have to call me. They can call the director of community service, say, hey, Donnie, there's an encampment growing. We don't want to call the police on them, but can you send out the community response team for homeless conditions to start engaging with them? So I'm taking myself out of the mix because once I'm out of office, they still have that. It doesn't matter who the council member is. So that's what how I try to think of it from an equitable standpoint is having facilitating stronger, actually just facilitating relationships and then facilitating those relationships getting stronger. So we try to have a meeting in every neighborhood of our district at least twice a year so that we can check in, what are the issues, and then check back in 6 months. So were the issues addressed? And here's some more people for you to meet. So that's how I try to do that, Jessica. And that to me is the equity work. And ultimately, there's never going to be enough resources.
Yes.
But we often say, right, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. And I don't know how to resolve that issue in limited resources. But what we do know is if there's more squeaky wheels, then that means we have to think of our budget differently.
Mhm.
So
Sounds
force
good.
the hand.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Where's Karen?
I'm here, but my internet keeps going in and out. So I turned off my beautiful face, put my cartoon face on. But I've been here listening to every word until the screen went blank. So annoying, especially at night. Jose, excellent, excellent, excellent. Now, I'm going to take a picture of everybody, so don't go anywhere. Hold on. Let's see if I can stay. All right. Dig it. Everybody ready? Cheese. I got to get my big face out of the way. All right.
On a Friday night, instead of clubs, we're doing political
On a
development.
Friday
I love
night,
it.
I
love it.
came from our winery to here.
I love it. I love it.
It was worth it though. It definitely was worth. Thank you. You provided such good, like tangible advice and resources. And I think there's something very special about grassroots campaigns. It's very community driven. You feel a part of it, which is really significantly important to center yourself in your politics and your policy. Sometimes it can just be like this whimsical thing that in the universe people are like not engaged and connected to, which is why I feel like this is something that needs to be done here in Flint. We really need to transform the political landscape in here in this city. We've experienced so much and we continue to experience so much as far as just poor leadership, unfortunately, and it's time that we have some big changes. So thank you. It was very inspiring. Your campaign is extremely inspiring.
Thank you, Egypt. Thank you. I can't wait to hear the national headlines from all of your campaigns
Yes.
and the transformative work. And if I could be of any resource, I'm happy to be on a call or just to listen. Any ways that I can be helpful. Karen has all my contact info, so happy to provide any supports that we can. And maybe
Thank you.
send over $3 if you do a $3 campaign.
Hey. A friend raised.
And stacks and stacks of $3
And
checks.
quesadillas, yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Jose.
All right. Well, have a good night, everybody.
Thank you, thank you,
Thank you.
thank you.
Seeing you again.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye. All right, everybody. All right, we went a little bit over, but for me, it was worth it, a tiny
Yeah.
bit over. So I'm gonna send a evaluation link in Slack, which I did for yesterday. Nobody returned it. So I'm
Oh,
gonna,
you did? I saw mine then.
the
about-
evaluation from yesterday you did?
I
I
did
did.
about 7 o'clock tonight.
Oh, okay, cool. Brenda Short, you did too?
Yeah.
I did.
All right, dig it. I didn't look. I didn't look after 5 o'clock my time.
Oh, okay.
I have not, so maybe that's me that needs to do it.
All right.
Well, I got
all right.
mine through the email. I didn't get it through Slack. Is that?
Oh, it's on Slack. There's a
It's live.
link in Slack
Okay.
for an evaluation for yesterday's series, and then I'll send one for today too. For today's series, an
So
evaluation.
where in Slack are you putting that?
It's in the March. Hold on. I'll tell you in a minute. I'm putting it in the March 2022 Candidate Development Series.
Okay.
Egypt, do you have that book about
Oh, I did this one. I did do this one.
Okay, cool.
girls who have considered, colored girls who have considered politics?
That's an
No, I just
excellent
done
book.
that, but I definitely can do like special orders.
It's
And
an
then the
excellent
other
book.
one, what's
It
this?
is. That's what I was looking at.
So, I mean, you have these women, these Black women who have held, they're like our age, well, my age and Brenda's age, and they've accomplished so much. And they got together and wrote this book, and it's excellent. Ninian Moore is a little bit younger.
I'd like to find out the book that Jose was talking about. What did he say?
It was like oh, I thought I put it in my notes. I've been taking
Radical
notes.
Possibilities. I just need to make sure
Radical,
that
yeah, radical
Yeah.
the,
possibilities.
That sounds right.
the author, I found it, but if you have it, I'd like to order that from you if you get it in, if you can let us know.
Absolutely. I've actually put my website on in the box.
Can you
Chat
put it on
box.
Slack too, so that we
Yep.
have that also?
That's smart. Thank you. I'll do that now.
Yeah, if you can get
And
that one, that'd
this
be
is
great.
a side note, Egypt, but my sister and I are going to be doing a podcast, and and then there'll be a website with it. It's called Unbreakable Sisterhood. And I'm gonna put, I haven't told Kate this yet.
News.
But I want to put on the website, women-owned businesses and women, I mean, just women who are involved. So no charge for advertising on it, but just important that we get it on there
Yes.
and that
thank
you be
you.
seen. So maybe
Absolutely.
like knowing that, of course, it hasn't been started yet. It's in the works, minutes away, which is code for a month away. But anyway, like maybe there could be, like sometime you could say that people will get a 5% discount or something like that, you know,
Yeah.
like something
Yeah.
special. But it's just important that women own, and especially women-owned businesses get out there and that they're recognized.
Yes.
I had no idea, Egypt, you own that bookstore. I'm telling you, because I brought it up before, like asked so many questions about it, but here you
Well,
are.
Here I am. And you know, me and my partner, he helps me out tremendously. He really is essential to the business. I wouldn't be able to do it without him whatsoever. So it definitely is a team effort. I would not have been able to do it alone. But yes, please ask away.
All right.
And I'm sending something in Slack right now to everyone. So
Wonderful.
oops, I put somebody in here that wasn't supposed to be in here.
Those of you outside of the PDT time zone, get a good night's sleep and we'll see you in the morning.
Yes. See you all
In the
tomorrow.
afternoon,
I will start
because
tomorrow.
mine's will,
Good
okay,
night.
so it starts 12 for me, right? 10 for you guys?
So you're 2 hours behind California,
Yeah.
and Catherine's 2 hours behind California, and Flint is 3 hours behind. Lucky.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
Lucky and that you get to start later, but unlucky and that you end much later.
Right.
Just a little. It's just, you know, about midnight here. Well, good night, everybody. It was
Good night.
Night.
wonderful.
Thank you. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Night, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Get a good night's sleep.
Yes.
See you tomorrow.
Bye.